The fires of Beltane are lit. Feasts may or may not have been had. Some people may be celebrating this weekend, but it's here. Happy Beltane, everyone. Falcha, Falcha. We are going to be talking today about our reflections and feelings about this upcoming summer and just celebrating with you like we like to do on the holidays. Yeah, without much more ado, let's talk about this year's Beltane as we walk together down Creation's paths. Hello, everyone. My name is Charlie. I am a Christopagan druid and priest of Brigid.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brian. I'm a Christopagan druid and sous chef to the Dagda.
And today we are going to be celebrating Beltane with you, Beltane. We're celebrating the arrival of summer and so many other things. We've talked a bit in the prep episodes about what Beltane is, and today we just wanted to have a conversation with you, a fireside chat, if you will, about all the things that are going on, what we feel like this Beltane means, and maybe some plans for the future. But before we get into all that, if you haven't already, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, whatever the terminology happens to be on whatever platform or app you're listening to us on. We do 5 original Christopagan and Druid episodes Monday through Friday. And you don't want to miss a thing. We got a lot of stuff planning, including our Star Wars Jedi Meet the Druids series that's going to be starting that y'all asked for. May the 4th be with you. We'll be starting that on May 5th. Yeah. Y'all asked. You're going to get what you asked. All of my Star Wars nerdery and all of my druid geekery mashed together in one place for hopefully your edification and enjoyment. Is that enough big words? Should we go on now? Let's get into it, shall we?
Happy Beltane Day to everyone. Mad respect if you're now entering your 12th to 20th hour of the party. You are truly a party monster. Hat off to you.
Like many of the other festivals, can last traditionally for up to 3 days, sometimes 9. In some Christian Irish groups, saw one last for 9 days.
Yeah.
We only have this and one more holiday before we get to our 1-year anniversary of when we started doing this podcast daily. We started it at Blue NASA last year. And yeah, I've been thinking a lot about what we're doing, where we are, and where things are going since creativity, new beginnings, and all of that abundance are themes of tonight. I thought this might be a time for us to talk to y'all and have a little bit of an early state of the podcast, state of the everything that we're doing right now, and just check in, because we don't often leave a lot of time in the individual episodes for us to do much of a check-in and talk about what else is going on. Like, try to keep the episodes very clear, concise, and directly on point to whatever we're talking about. But I don't know, Beltane for me was always that place where sometimes there were friends that I only saw every year on this day because they would travel in for the holiday. And so there's this kind of connection with me of it's Beltane, so we're reconnecting, we're getting ready for the year to come. We are really just saying hello to friends that we haven't seen through the long, cold, dark of winter, even after it came into spring. So Beltane puts me in a chatty place. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about is where we are and where things are going forward. We have been an audio podcast, and I intend for this podcast to remain an audio podcast because I don't know, there's something fun about doing audio that I rather enjoy. But if you remember, we were doing 2 other podcasts along with this, the Hollowstead and Church of the Oak. We haven't forgot about those. We have been planning, scheming, organizing, getting stuff together to be able to do some things with them that hopefully y'all will find special and interesting. This podcast has done more than I imagined it doing. That's all down to y'all. I don't want this to be a look how great we're doing kind of an episode. I want it to be a thank you to all of y'all who, some of you came in very early on when we first started doing it daily. Some of you, and you know who you are, have been with us way on back since the beginning and have somehow kept with us through all of the trials and tribulations and trying to figure out exactly how we wanted to do a spirituality podcast that felt honest to us and what we were doing. I just want to give thanks and gratitude to you all Thank you for allowing us to explore on this podcast and try out new things, different things, and really get into the meat and bones of spirituality in a way that we don't see a lot of other podcasts doing.
To help give some emphasis and gravity to what Charlie's saying there, this was almost our 300th episode. A couple days after this, we'll be hitting our 300th episode. That's not all since Lunasa. I think Lunasa was in the mid 100s.
I want to do more with this podcast, and that's why I wanted to dedicate this Beltane celebration. But talk to y'all, and really, y'all are so good about leaving comments and everything. Get you all in on where you see us going. What do you want more of from us? Because I don't want to be somebody who is following clicks and views. It's really easy for us when we're looking at our analytics to go, oh, that's a good topic, because look at how many people saw it, look at the watch time, all of those kinds of things. But if we did that, we would do nothing but talk about Jesus, Satan, and prophecy. Those are the three topics that tend to do the best for us as far as like just raw numbers. But I don't know that we would be actually serving the community if we did that. Now, I know quite a few of y'all are really interested in, especially our takes on Christianity, especially as Christopagans, and how that changes the way we read the stories and interpret the stories. And so one of the thoughts that I had, and I wanted to bring this up to the council, that's all of y'all that are listening right now, I've been thinking that maybe once a week, actually doing more of a Bible study episode where we could pick a passage and just really dig into it, go through it, and talk about, one, some of the passages that never get talked about. I think it'd be really fun to go through James chapter 5, because you hear me mention it a lot. Anybody who's anywhere near the prosperity gospel avoids it like the plague, because it is James calling them all evil, children of the devil. But I think that could be some really interesting things that we could do in here, because one of the things that I notice, especially in the comments, is how you all like talking about the history and the tradition, the things that you may not have been taught about the history of these ideas, of the way these interpretations have changed over time. And that's something that I am endlessly fascinated with. I know our episode on the mini Satans, I think that's what we called it, was very big in the comments, because we mentioned a lot of Satans that people had not heard of. And we didn't even exhaust all of them, because we didn't go into the 7 Satans of the medieval period and all of that. Like, we cut it short on all the ones that we talked about there. And we didn't even get into really John Milton's Satan, which is a completely different animal than all of the others, and almost a genre unto itself. But I saw in the comments on that episode and many of the other episodes that we've done, this real interest in seeing this history. And while I wouldn't say that I am a scholar like a Karen Armstrong, if you've ever read her History of God or God, a Biography, or Elaine Pagel's wonderful History of the Devil book, or any of her books on Gnosticism, I'm not a scholar of their caliber, and I would never claim to that, but this is something that I have had an interest in for a long time, and I see that in a lot of you. So I would like to know if y'all are interested in more of that, and if so, specific topics that you'd really like us to dig into and really talk about, because I have a very wide breadth of interests. My interests are, if you've watched Justin's Esoteric channel, yeah, he covers all of my interests on that channel as far as what I'm into, except I also have a strong interest in a lot of Buddhist stuff as well, if you haven't noticed, which he doesn't go into all that often. But do you want us to widen out? Do you want us to focus in? What would you like to hear us talk about?
I find very informative and helpful going into the history parts of it, because it gives a context and clarity on some of the words, some of the language being used, and what's actually being meant by the language being used. When I was first struggling with the term pagan, I had a modern, very prejudiced, negative view, because I was raised in the Satanic Panic era, and pagan and witch was just another word used to say evil or Satan. And having that history and understanding the context of all four of those words, and realizing oh, that's just a lot of boogity boogity, and generally excuses for misogyny and oppression. And yeah, I really do. I know I enjoy bringing some of that history in, and it brings an understanding. And as somebody who sometimes gets, I guess I could say bored, or sometimes bored with the very collegiate approach, I like how we touch on it in just more of that contextual perspective.
The difference between what Justin does and what we do is Justin is trying to provide a scholarly academic view on things, and I'm trying to provide it for practical use.
Yes.
Because, and this is something that I find very hard, especially when dealing with other people who are helping facilitate spiritual practice for people. I think that all spirituality has to be practical or it's useless. I think, yeah,
Yes.
it'd be a lot of fun to sit back and discuss the generations of the Sephirah. I think that could be a lot of fun. I think that could be interesting. We can talk about the histories of Samael and the generation of demons and all of that and go through the stories there. But that's all just kind of intellectual games that we're playing with ourselves. We're not really learning anything. Rabbi Shapiro, in his wonderful book, Judaism Without Tribalism, talks extensively in there about how it's always funny that theologians study and seek and always find a version of their faith that is exactly the one that they went looking for when they set out. Because that's really what a lot of us are doing. And we don't realize that every God that has ever existed on earth is made in the image of the people who worship that God. And that doesn't mean that there's not a spirit there. Like, I believe that there is a spirit of Brigid, Jesus, Mary. I do believe in the Holy Spirit and the Trinity and all of that. I believe in them as ontological beings in their own rights. Like, they are entities that exist. If there were no humans, they would exist, right? But I don't believe Brigid's name is Brigid. I believe that Brigid's name is a name given to her by my ancestors, who probably gave her a different name originally, something more like Brenty or something like that, that meant the bright one, the shining one. And over the years, it came to be the word that we use today. That all of the stories that we have, all of the legends that we have, they are an amalgamation of humans trying to understand a transcendent experience and a transcendent being, a being that is just beyond our comprehension. And I think that's true of the God of the Bible and any other deity that we're talking about. It's not that they're metaphors in the sense of there's nothing that they're talking about or they're just talking about human emotions. I think that is true for some. I think Eros in Greek mythology is just a metaphor for our own drives and interests. I'm not saying that there isn't an Eros out there, but my feelings is that's what that is, that it is a pure metaphor. And some gods and spirits are pure metaphors, but others are not. And when you don't understand that all of these stories have a tradition to them, that they have changed over time, you get locked in to a particular way of thinking, whether that's through the magisterium of the Catholic Church, which claims to have never changed its opinion on anything, even though that's not true, or you get locked in this fundamentalist idea that the scriptures are always saying the same thing. So if you find two scriptures in contradiction, one generally supersedes the other, and it's always the one that agrees with whatever your preconceived notion is. And none of that's true. All of these traditions have been living and vibrant. When we found the Dead Sea Scrolls, yes, we found copies of these books of Hebrew scripture that were far older than anything we had before. But we also found multiple copies of them that did not agree with each other on what the text was. Some were longer, some were shorter, some had slightly different passages, slightly different words. And it shows this living tradition where people were writing and rewriting and editing and adding new text. And that's not a bad thing. And especially here on Beltane, right? Whether it's here celebrating Beltane, this idea of permanence is such an illusion in spirituality, right? I get frustrated with a lot of my witchy comrades because many of them nowadays are like, but I practice traditional fill in the blank that has been passed down from generation to generation, and a line unbroken. No line is unbroken, because even if you learned it from your mom, who learned it from your grandmother, who learned it from her great-grandmother, you have no way of knowing what they changed along the way to get to you. because all you have is the version that they handed down that then got handed down again. Because that's how spirituality lives. That's how spirituality survives. And that's what makes it vital and real. You have to reinterpret the stories. You have to be able to have them be lived in. Look, do I know where Brigid came from? No. I know that there are stories in poems that people have written that talk about her mother and who name her mother. I have a strong belief in who I believe her mother to be. I believe that she is a child of the Dagda and the Morrigan. I cannot point to anything in the legends or the lore that supports that. That is my personal belief. And it's my personal belief because in some of the older stories, Brigid is called a Morrigan. And that's the only thing I have to hold my hat on. And I know I'm not the only one who has that belief. Does that make it true? This is where we get into a really sticky wicket. Really sticky. Because what do you mean by true? We are living in a day and age where truth is under so much attack because we've confused truth and facts. Facts can be verified. Facts can be 100% verified. If you say that somebody was in a place at a certain time, we can do DNA tests, we can do fingerprint analysis. There's a lot of ways to determine whether or not a person was in a place at a particular time. That's a fact. Truth is something nebulous. If I tell you I love cats, is it because there's a song by Vision Video that I really like that's the name of? Is it because I own cats? Do I actually love cats? You have no way of knowing. You could try to look at my interaction with cats to see if I really love them. But at that point, you are having to do something other than facts to determine the truth of the statement. And that's where people get lost in this idea that they can discover the truth. I can tell you as much as I want to that I love cats, that carrot cows and tigers are some of my favorites. And if I lived back in ancient Egypt, I would have had pet cheetahs and all that. But you have no way of knowing if that's really how I feel on the inside. And we've gotten lost because we think we can determine those facts. And a lot of spirituality is that kind of fact. I get really mad at people that are like, we can scientifically prove or disprove religion. You can't. None of us can. I cannot prove to you that there is a God, and you cannot prove to me that there is not one. Because the definition that I have of God is existence itself. You'd have to prove to me that nothing exists. But that's not the definition that everybody has. So my truth, my words are different. They mean different things. And that's true for everyone who ever wrote a line of scripture or any of these ancient tales. And by learning their tradition, in practicing the tradition, we learn what is true about them. Is Beltane honoring something important? I don't know. No one knows. All we know is traditionally on May 1st, they would light fires, they would walk their animals in between them, they would bless the community, they would have a ruckus good time, and it was called Beltane. We don't even know what the word Beltane means. There are conflicting arguments over what the etymology of this word is and what the word itself means. And that's okay. And I feel that a lot of the work of spirituality and a lot of the work that we do here on this podcast is just trying to get people okay with the places that are ambiguous. Because there are places where there is no ambiguity. Did a comet hit the earth and kill the dinosaurs? There is a preponderance of evidence. Yes, that happened. That is real. We can see the facts in the stones of the earth. Was there ever a Moses? I don't know. And I don't know that we will ever know, because there could have been a chieftain of an early tribe that all these stories collected around, and more stories got added to him until he became something other than what he was historically. There could have been several people that got amalgamated together to make the story of Moses. I don't know. That doesn't matter. Was there ever an Abraham? I don't care, because there is an Abraham. Because let's see if there's 8 billion people alive today and 2 billion of them are Christian and 1 billion of them are Muslim, that's 3 out of 8 people on the planet Earth believe that in some way, shape, or form that their faith and possibly even their ethnicity derives from this figure. So whether there was a historical figure or not, Abraham is a real, tangible presence in the world today. And that's the kind of ambiguity we need to learn to live with. That's the creativity we're asked to have, especially on days like this, on days like Beltane. Daring to imagine that the world is older, stranger, and more profound than we could ever put into words. Yes, I can tell you what the chemical structure of water is. I can never explain to you exactly how good it feels to sit in a pond and feel that water up against my skin. That is a truth that only I will ever know. Because even if you enjoy swimming or being in water, your enjoyment is going to be different from mine. I can never know your truth of this experience. You can never know mine. But we create and construct a language between us so that we can share what little we can share. That's why we try to build community. That's why we're here. That's why we're doing all of this. And if anyone gets anything out of any of the work we're doing, if you could just accept the liberation that the way your religion, your spirituality, or whatever is practiced today is not and could never be the way it was practiced 100 years ago, let alone 1,000 years ago. The world would be a better place for all of us if we could all just agree on that.
To the point, we can talk about how much the printing press revolutionized religion, and yet we can't conceive about it being this changing and evolving thing.
And we're living through it again.
And we're in this digital age, and we can have entire libraries in our pocket.
We don't understand the gravity of what we're living through because we're living through it. Especially younger people. If you're too young to remember a world without internet, I am old enough to remember a world without internet. I remember having to find a book that hopefully would have someone's phone number in it and hoping that you knew their address, because a lot of times there would be several people with that same name in that book. And yes, they used to print a book with everybody's name and home address and telephone number in it. That
nowadays we call that doxing.
Yeah, that was a thing.
But it was just public information. It was just a thing.
The digital revolution has given everybody a voice in the way that the printing press gave powerful people a voice. If you had enough power and money to own and operate a printing press, you suddenly had power. Today, everyone has that power. And it's multiplying. Everyone has the power to podcast. Everyone has the power to post whatever they want to a YouTube or to an Instagram or to a Blue Sky and get their voice and opinion out there. So it's more vital than ever for us to understand the difference between opinion, truth, and facts.
Yeah. And also how to verify sources.
Yeah.
I was quite excited. I was just thinking about this yesterday. I was out in public and a mother and child were having a conversation, and the child stated something as fact in them. And I was really proud because the mother took a moment to question the child's statement and to have the child question their source. What were they repeating back at her?
Yep.
Where did it come from? And the child's like, well, I saw it on this YouTube video. And she's like, well, what was their source? And basically help the child go through the process of verifying what they're spouting. Because when I heard the YouTube channel they were spouting from, I was like, that explains why they said such a ridiculous thing, because they had received nonsense that they were just spouting back. But I was most excited about the mother actually teaching this child how to go through that process, because so many who had this happen in their adulthood skills.
Yeah. And it's been one revolution after another. I remember the changes that came into the world through the mimeograph. I remember zines when I was younger. I remember newsletters once everybody had a computer that could and a printer, and how much that changed things. And before we could get used to all these newsletters that were going around, we had the internet, and then there were email chain lines and Usenet. And before we could get used to that, there were blogs and social media. And before we could get used to that, there's podcasts and there's YouTube and all of that. And before we could get used to that, now there's all of the AI. And I'm sorry for anyone who's like, how will we ever know what's real again? I remember in the 90s arguing with people over whether or not Batboy was real. And Batboy was the clearest fake photographs I've ever seen in my life. But people wanted to believe that something like that could be real. We've always had a problem determining what's real. The technology might make it easier to make something look real, but that's never stopped people from believing that. Back in the 15 and 1600s, people would see a woodblock print propaganda about a thing that happened and believe that it happened.
Or they would see some kind of monster, and it was literally like parts of a dog and parts of a monkey and parts of some other animals all stitched together and presented as real. You know.
We've always had a problem with that. We will always have a problem with that because we as humans have an instinct to believe and to belong. Anything that we do to suppress those is dangerous because they'll always find a way to latch on something. It's better to teach people how to discern their beliefs and discern their belonging than to...
Yeah, because if you find yourself sitting there talking with a hardcore, for instance, MAGA person, especially one really into the conspiracies, one of the first things they do is they start going, this isn't real, that isn't real. And you can hear pretty quickly what they're really struggling with is an ability to discern properly. They're literally just accepting one thing on faith, on blind faith, and then denying everything else that counters that. And they're literally building on a foundation of sand.
So I hope you've enjoyed this Beltane episode, and you can kind of see where our brain is and where our minds and hearts are as far as what we want to bring going forward. I joke around about the Star Wars Druidry episodes that are coming up, but that's more like, you don't know what geekery you have unleashed on yourselves by asking us to do this. Like, both Bride and I are big Star Wars fans, and we're both practicing druids. Like, you don't know what you've done. You have no idea, but you're going to find out. You are going to find out. We're going to be talking about Ashland, Bogan, and all the fun stuff. We're going to be talking about the difference between the living force and the cosmic force. Yeah, you have no idea. So get ready and buckle up for that. We are here to serve the community. And so I'm just curious, what things would you like us to do? We are planning a Pelagius series. We get a lot of questions about Pelagius and Augustine. So we are planning to do a series about them. I'm probably going to do some stuff about Erigena, because John Scotus Erigena, I think, is a very important figure it's so important that people understood he was from Ireland. They said it twice because John is his name. Scothi means from Ireland, and Erigena means born on the island of Ireland. So it's very important. He's Irish. He's John the Irishman, born on the island of Ireland. Just in case you didn't know. And by the way, that's very important because that's one of the things that his detractors held against him. It's one of the things that they held against Pelagius too, by the way. Did you not know he cuts his hair like an Irishman?
Yeah. If you're wondering, how deep does the racism towards the Irish people run? We're talking all the way back to the 3rd century.
And even before that.
Even before that, for all those.
I do believe there is a Roman document that refers to Ireland as the island of demons.
Yeah. Like it goes, once again, all the way back to Roman times.
So those are some of the things that we're thinking about doing. I think it might be fun for us to do a walk through the Book of Invasions and actually go through the stories of how Ireland came to be, at least through that source, and play with it. There are other things that we could do. I think it'd be a lot of fun. But again, I don't want to just do things that I think are fun. I want to do stuff that y'all want us to do. So as part of the creativity of the day, please let us know. If you're listening to us on YouTube, Spotify, or CreationsPaths.com, you leave a comment right there. If you're listening to us anywhere else, even if they say you can leave a comment, they won't let us know, so we won't know. So you can leave a comment there anyway, because they engage with this magic. Then head over to CreationsPaths.com, click on chat, and you can leave a comment there. While you're there, if you have a few dollars you can pass our way, we offer monthly and annual memberships. You can also support us through Patreon and Ko-fi. I am CE Dorset on both. You can also support us using the Cash App hashtag CreationsPaths. Thank you to everybody who does that. It really means a lot to us. If we have ever said anything that's helped you out or that you think would help out others, please share it with them. That helps us out more than you could possibly know. And as we are going out today, Agda, useful one, strong in spirit, we call on you today to help fuel our fires, to play the songs of joy that will heal us, the songs of slumber that will help us to get rest, and the songs of sorrow that will bring us the catharsis that we need, that we may get to the brighter and stronger days. Because at the Second Battle of Motoy, you said that you could do all the things that we offered, and we asked your strength to be able to do all the things that we want to do and need to do. Guide us in your jovial and playful way, so that we may have all the blessings that we can find in this life. Amen.
Amen.